So picture this. Um, your dog is napping in this warm patch of sunlight on the living room floor,
Oh,
right?
yeah. The classic sunbeam nap.
Exactly. And you're just watching them breathe and you realize, they've been sleeping in that exact spot for a little bit longer today than they used to. And it suddenly hits you.
They're getting older.
Right. That chaotic, tiny puppy you brought home all those years ago is, well, officially a senior. And your immediate instinct might be this wave of sadness. Or maybe like a sudden anxiety that aging means they are about to get terribly sick.
Which is such a profound realization to have on like a random Tuesday. And that automatic jump to anxiety is so incredibly common.
It really is.
We tend to conflate getting older with a medical emergency waiting to happen. But looking at the biological reality, I mean, aging is simply a physiological evolution. It's just a new stage of development, not a disease.
And if you are joining us today, you probably know that exact mix of love and, low-level panic I'm talking about. Today, we are taking a deep dive into some truly fascinating source material.
Yeah, a really great transcript from the Vital Pet Network.
Exactly, one that zeroes in specifically on French Bulldog senior care. And our mission for this deep dive is to completely dismantle that misconception that aging is just like a synonym for fading away.
Which is such an important shift in perspective.
It totally changes everything. We're going to decode the subtle, gradual, and honestly surprisingly sweet shifts that happen as a dog ages. Because reframing this potentially sad topic into a fascinating exploration of an evolving relationship, well, it completely changes how you interact with your pet.
It does. And establishing that analytical but deeply compassionate lens right out of the gate is it's essential.
Right.
Because understanding the actual mechanisms, like the underlying biological why behind these natural physical and mental shifts, is the absolute key to supporting a senior dog.
Right. So you're not just guessing.
Exactly. When you understand the logic of how their body is changing, you stop merely reacting to symptoms. You start proactively partnering with them through this new chapter.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because before we can jump into the daily management of a senior dog, we kind of have to figure out when that stage actually begins.
Right, the timeline.
Yeah, and reading through this material, the timeline for a French Bulldog is distinctly different from, say, a Golden Retriever. They enter their senior years much earlier, typically right around, 7 to 9 years old?
Yeah, right around there.
Why the accelerated timeline? I mean, 7 seems so young.
Well, it really comes down to the mechanics of their compact physiology. They are a brachycephalic breed, meaning they have that flat face structure,
Right.
and they carry a significant amount of muscle mass on a very condensed skeletal frame.
So it's just a lot of weight on a small chassis.
Exactly. The sheer physical wear and tear of carrying that density, combined with their unique respiratory anatomy, means their systems mature and eventually begin to slow down faster than, like, a lighter, longer-nosed breed.
Wow, okay.
But the crucial detail to pull from this is how that transition actually unfolds. A dog does not wake up on their 8th birthday and suddenly become a fragile senior citizen.
Right, it is much more like a changing season. I love that analogy.
It's so accurate.
Like you rarely step outside in late September and notice the temperature dropping 20 degrees in a single afternoon.
Right, you definitely notice that.
Yeah, it happens incrementally, day by day, shifting so subtly that you don't even realize the summer is over until suddenly you need a sweater just to check the mail. And that is what is happening inside the dog's body. It unfolds over months and sometimes years.
What's fascinating here is the required mindset shift for you, the owner. Getting older is definitively not the same thing as getting sick.
Such a huge distinction.
It really is. Aging doesn't mean your dog is going to stop playing or suddenly lose their personality. I mean, this particular breed remains incredibly engaged well into their later years.
They are little clowns, for sure.
They absolutely are. So the goal is to recognize these normal, seasonal shifts so you don't misread them. If you assume any physical changes in illness, you just live in a state of constant panic.
Which is exhausting for everyone.
Exactly. But on the flip side, if you assume aging just means they're done and want to be left alone, you ignore their need for engagement. Both extremes do a massive disservice to the dog.
So if we stick with the idea of a changing season, let's look at the actual climate of the dog's body. Because for a French Bulldog, everything seems to revolve around their most critical and historically vulnerable system, right?
Their airway and their metabolism.
Yeah. The material makes it super clear that breathing needs intense attention as they age, but I really want to understand the mechanics here. Like, why does a dog who breathed totally fine at age 4 suddenly struggle at age 8?
Well, to understand that, we really have to look at the anatomy. French Bulldogs have essentially the same amount of soft tissue in their mouth and throat as a dog with a long snout.
Wait, really? The same amount?
Yeah, pretty much. But it is packed into a fraction of the space. That includes the soft palate at the back of the roof of the mouth. Now, in their youth, that tissue is tight, elastic, and highly resilient.
Okay, so it stays out of the way.
Right. But aging causes a natural systemic loss of collagen and muscle tone. The tissue loses its elasticity. It begins to literally sag and flutter more when they breathe, which physically obstructs the airway just a little bit more than it used to.
So it is essentially like trying to breathe through a slightly narrower straw, purely because the walls of the straw have gotten softer.
That is a brilliant way to visualize it, yeah. Because of that loss of elasticity, every single breath requires slightly more mechanical effort.
Okay, hold on. I want to push back on this a little bit, because isn't panting and needing a few extra rest breaks just, I don't know, normal?
You think so, yeah.
I mean, I feel like if my dog sits down halfway through our evening walk, he's just tired from a long day. Are we over-medicalizing a sleepy dog here?
See, that is exactly where well-meaning owners get trapped. Yes, some slowing down is a perfectly normal part of the aging process. But here is the danger.
Okay, what is it?
Because those changes in tissue elasticity happen so incredibly slowly, it is very easy to completely miss the transition from normal tired to oxygen deprived. You see them every single day, so it's like watching your hair grow in the mirror.
Oh, that makes sense. You just don't notice the daily millimeters.
Exactly. You only realize how long it is when you look at a photograph from 6 months ago.
Ah, so the daily familiarity actually works against us. We just adjust our baseline of what is normal for the dog without even realizing we're doing it.
Precisely. You might just think, oh, he liked to take a breather at the corner now. You don't realize he's taking a breather because his aging soft palate is swelling from the effort of the walk, and he physically cannot get enough air to keep moving.
Wow. And here's what completely blew my mind in this material when discussing the physical changes. The metabolic shift.
Oh, yes. This is a huge one.
Like, you can feed your dog the exact same premium kibble in the exact same half-cup portion that kept them in perfect athletic shape at age 4. But at age 8, they suddenly blow up like a balloon.
Because the fuel intake remains identical, but the engine is running slower.
Right.
As they age, their cellular metabolism naturally slows down. Plus, they're taking slightly longer naps and playing slightly shorter games of fetch, so their overall caloric expenditure drops.
Which means leftover energy.
Exactly. If you keep dumping the same amount of fuel into a system that isn't burning it, that excess energy is immediately stored as fat.
And for a French Bulldog, that extra weight seems like an absolute disaster for the airway we were just talking about.
Oh, it is a compounding danger. Extra weight means extra tissue in the neck and chest, which presses down on an airway that is already struggling with sagging tissue.
So it's a vicious cycle.
Absolutely. The heavier they get, the harder it is to breathe. The harder it is to breathe, the less they want to exercise. And, well, the less they exercise, the heavier they get.
Which naturally brings us to the collateral damage of all that extra weight, right? The joints.
Yes, the motion conundrum.
Because if the breathing effort is harder and they are carrying extra bulk, I imagine their little legs take a massive beating over time. We really have to completely reimagine exercise for them.
The joints absolutely show the strain first. The cartilage that cushions their joints begins to thin out, and the synovial fluid, which is the natural biological lubricant inside the joint capsule, doesn't circulate quite as efficiently.
So they get creaky.
Basically, yeah. You start to see indicators of stiffness. They might hesitate for a fraction of a second before jumping onto a couch they used to clear effortlessly.
Right.
Or you might see them moving with a stiff, almost wooden gait right after waking up from a nap, particularly on a cold morning.
But there is a massive misconception here that we need to clear up for everyone. When an owner sees that stiffness, the immediate emotional reaction is to protect the dog.
Of course it is.
You think, oh, his knees hurt. I should just let him sleep on the orthopedic bed all day and skip the walk entirely.
It is a deeply compassionate instinct, but biologically, it is the worst thing you can do. Complete inactivity actually accelerates the stiffness. It does not prevent it.
It is exactly like owning a vintage car.
Oh, I love this analogy.
Right. You don't just leave a classic 1960s Mustang parked in a humid garage under a tarp for 5 years to protect it, because if you do that, the engine seizes up, the belts rot and the undercarriage rusts out.
It falls apart.
Exactly. To keep it humming, you have to take it for gentle, consistent weekend drives.
That analogy hits the nail on the head because it perfectly describes the mechanism of joint lubrication. Remember that synovial fluid we mentioned?
Yeah, the biological lubricant.
Right. It requires the mechanical pumping action of movement to warm up and coat the cartilage. If the dog lies completely still for 24 hours, that fluid becomes sluggish, and the joints undergo bone-on-bone friction when they finally do stand up.
Ouch.
Yeah. So healthy aging requires an adjustment in your approach to their activity, not an end to it.
So how do you actually gauge what the right level of gentle and consistent is? I mean, you can't exactly ask them if their knees are aching.
No, you can't. You have to become a student of their recovery.
Okay, what does that look like?
Well, if you take them for a 15-minute walk and they are eager, sniffing, and engaged, that's great. But the real test is 30 minutes after you get home.
Oh, the cool down phase.
Exactly. If their breathing returns to normal quickly and they can comfortably get up to get a drink of water, you are hitting the sweet spot.
And if they don't?
If they're reluctant to even start the walk, if they lie down halfway down the block, or if they come home and are so physically exhausted that they refuse to move for the rest of the day, well, that is their body signaling that you pushed too far.
Got it.
And because this is a changing season, you have to continually reassess. The gentle walk that works perfectly for your vintage car in May might be way too strenuous by November.
Modifying how they physically move through their environment makes a lot of sense, but I want to pivot to how they are actually perceiving that space. Let's talk about their sensory and mental landscape.
Yes, this is so important.
Because it isn't just their joints that are aging, right? It's their eyes, their ears, and their mind.
And the sensory decline is just as gradual as the tissue elasticity loss, which makes it equally hard to spot. Dogs are incredibly stoic and adaptable.
They really are.
They will completely compensate for failing vision by relying more heavily on their nose and their memory of a room's layout. You might only realize their hearing has faded when they startle violently because you walked up behind them while they were eating.
So if their vision is fading, does that mean their own living room becomes an obstacle course? Like, do I need to buy entirely new padded furniture to keep them safe?
Not at all. The interventions are actually shockingly simple, but you have to understand the psychology behind them. The goal is to preserve their mental map of the house.
Their mental map.
Yeah. When a dog starts losing their sight, they rely on a heavily ingrained spatial memory. They know exactly how many steps it takes to get from the rug to the food bowl.
Oh, wow.
So the absolute most supportive thing you can do is stop rearranging the furniture.
That makes total sense because moving the coffee table isn't just a physical hazard, it actually shatters their mental map.
Exactly. Imagine trying to navigate your bedroom in pitch blackness, feeling totally confident, and suddenly you slam your chin into a chair that was never there before.
I would be so startled.
It shatters your confidence. For an aging dog, that break in predictability causes immense localized anxiety. They might start pacing or panting, not because they are in pain, but because their world suddenly feels untrustworthy.
So you just keep things predictable.
Right. You preserve their confidence by keeping the layout static, putting down non-slip rugs on hardwood floors so they don't lose traction, and providing simple ramps to the couch.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. When we talk about this loss of confidence, it feeds directly into their emotional well-being.
It does.
Because the French Bulldog is already famous for being a deeply attached, almost shadow-like breed. And you might assume an aging dog dealing with achy joints and cloudy vision would become aloof or just want to be left alone in a quiet room.
Which is a very logical assumption.
But the reality is the exact opposite. They often seek out significantly more closeness and physical contact as they age.
It is a beautiful, albeit slightly heartbreaking behavioral shift. Think about what we just discussed. Their physical world is becoming slightly blurrier.
Yeah.
The house is quieter because their hearing is fading. Their own body feels a bit less secure underneath them. In a world that is slowly losing its sharp edges, you, their owner, become their primary anchor.
Wow.
You are the one constant, safe, warm center of their universe.
So that increased clinginess isn't them just being annoying or needy, it's them actively seeking grounding.
Precisely. They're using your physical presence to orient themselves. Therefore, maintaining gentle play, consistent physical connection, and mental engagement isn't just like a nice bonus to keep them entertained.
Mandatory.
It is structurally essential to their psychological stability. If you withdraw because you think they just want to sleep, you are literally removing their anchor.
So, what does this all mean practically? Because we have all these internal changes happening simultaneously. The sagging airways, the slowing metabolism, the joint friction, the fading senses, and the deepening emotional reliance.
That's a lot to juggle.
It is. How do you manage all of this without feeling totally overwhelmed?
Well, you have to fundamentally change the rhythm of your outside support system. You cannot rely on the old schedule.
Like the vet schedule.
Exactly. During their adult years, going to the vet once a year for a quick vaccine update and a rabies shot was perfectly sufficient. But once they hit that 7 to 9 year threshold, that rhythm has to change to biannual wellness visits.
Why so frequent? Is it just to catch diseases faster?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the true value of these frequent vet visits is not about waiting to catch a massive, dramatic emergency. It is about the accumulation of data.
Okay, what do you mean by data?
Well, we talked about how daily familiarity makes it impossible for you to see the gradual changes.
Right, the hair growing in the mirror analogy.
Exactly. The veterinarian provides the objective photograph from 6 months ago.
Ah.
Hmm.
So they are essentially building a medical baseline to compare against.
Exactly. When the vet listens to the heart, checks the airway, and palpates the joints every 6 months, they can spot a 10% decline in mobility or a slight new murmur in the heart that you would never, ever notice at home.
Because it's so subtle.
Right. And catching that gradual shift early allows you to adjust their diet or start a joint supplement before the dog is visibly limping or really struggling for oxygen.
You know, the material also pointed out that routine maintenance things like cleaning their facial skin folds and checking their teeth become critical medical priorities during this stage. Why do wrinkles suddenly matter so much more?
It goes back to that loss of skin elasticity and immune function. As the skin loses resilience, those iconic facial folds can trap moisture and bacteria much more aggressively than before.
Oh, which leads to infections.
Yeah, chronic yeast infections. And dental health is paramount because aging gums tend to recede.
Which exposes the root.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The tartar buildup doesn't just cause bad breath. It creates a direct highway for bacteria to enter the bloodstream and attach to the valves of an already aging heart.
Wow. It fundamentally changes how we view the veterinarian, doesn't it? Like,
Hmm.
we are so conditioned to treat the vet like an emergency mechanic. You know, you only take the car in when it makes a terrifying grinding noise or breaks down on the highway.
Right, the fix-it mindset.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But for a senior dog, the vet is actually a navigator. They are helping you map these changing baselines so you can steer around the potholes before you hit them.
It shifts the entire dynamic from being reactive to being fiercely proactive.
Yeah.
And honestly, it is incredibly empowering for the owner.
Which really brings this entire deep dive to a cohesive close. I mean, when
Yeah.
we pull all these biological and psychological threads together, the overarching message from this material is deeply uplifting.
It really is.
Caring for a senior dog is not a long, depressing list of medical chores. It is not simply managing an inevitable, sad decline.
It is an immense privilege and an opportunity.
An opportunity to honor the trust and the profound familiarity that you have built with this animal over years and years. It is about ensuring that their comfort, their dignity, and their connection to you remain at the absolute forefront of their daily life.
The true value here is simply being present. I mean, think
Yeah.
about it. Your dog has spent its entire life being intensely present with you.
Yeah, always watching.
Exactly. They have watched your every move, reacted to your moods, celebrated your arrivals, and kept you company through everything. These senior years are your chance to return that favor in full.
It completely changes the narrative from a sad fading away into a really beautiful, deliberate, and intentional final chapter.
It does.
Which brings us to a final thought for you to take away today. We have spent this entire deep dive exploring how to adapt to a slower, more deliberate pace for our dogs. We meticulously adjust our homes for them. We fiercely protect their routines.
We give them immense grace as their capabilities shift.
We do. We consciously slow our own walking pace down just to preserve their joy and their confidence. We offer them boundless patience.
Absolutely.
So here is something to mull over as you go about the rest of your week. If carefully observing our aging pets teaches us that adjusting our environment, cherishing routine, and intentionally slowing down actually preserves joy and dignity, what might that teach us about how we design the spaces, the expectations, and the pace for the later chapters of our own human lives?
Man, that raises an important question about how we treat our own aging process and our own elders. That is a really powerful thought to sit with.
It really is. Until next time, keep digging deeper.